In today's halacha, we're going to discuss the meaning behind this day, Zayin Adar, and the reading of the Torah of this coming Shabbos, Parshat Zachar. So today, the seventh day of Adar, is the day that Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, as recorded in the Gemara in Saita 12b, and it is likewise the same day that Moshe Rabbeinu was born. Zayin Adar was the day he was born, and he passed away. It's disputed in the Gemara whether Moshe Rabbeinu was born in a leap year or in a non-leap year. It's brought in Shulchan Aruch that the year that Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, Zayin Adar was on Shabbos, and hence Moshe Rabbeinu passed away on Shabbos towards the time of Mincha. The Rebbe states that on this day of Zayin Adar, even though we don't find any specific marking in Shulchan Aruch or Minhagim, one is to increase in joy on this day, especially being that it's also the birthday and also the Yom Histalkus of Moshe Rabbeinu. And we thus have a double reason to celebrate. In a different talk, the Rebbe stated that it is proper to establish the joy of this day similar to the celebration of custom on Lag BaOmer, the Yom Hailula of the Rashbi. As is brought in Shulchan Aruch chapter 580 halacha 2, some are accustomed to fast on this day. This, however, is not the Chabad custom. However, one should increase in charity on this day in exchange for the fast, and is considered as if he fasted. So said the Rebbe. On this day we do say Tachanun, however the Chabad Rebbeim did not say Tachanun on Zayin Adar, and that was their personal custom that's not to be followed by the masses. Parshat Zachar. This week we read Parshat Zachar in Shul. It's brought down in Shulchan Aruch in the name of many Rishonim that the reading of Parshat Zachar is a biblical obligation, meaning it is a biblical obligation, a mitzvah Torah, to hear the reading of Zachar. This is recorded in numerous places in Shulchan Aruch, amongst them 146.2, 685.7, and in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch in 282.16. There are various opinions as to what this means in terms of how one fulfills the biblical obligation. Some opinions rule that this biblical obligation is only fulfilled if you hear the reading of Zachar from an actual Sefer Torah together with the minyan, and that is practically what we do. Even according to those that argue and say that from the biblical perspective, the obligation is fulfilled by merely remembering Amalek, while the Torah reading is only rabbinical. Nevertheless, everyone agrees that listening to the reading of Zachar from a Sefer Torah with a minyan on the Shabbos is, at the very least, a rabbinical requirement, if not a biblical requirement, as learned some Poskim. Being that this is the case, it's brought in Poskim that one is to endeavor and make sure that he is present by a minyan for the Shabbos, and thus one who doesn't live in an area with a minyan should travel specifically to be by a minyan for the Shabbos. So we hear Parshat Zachar. Prior to the reading of Zachar, the reader as well as the listeners are to have in mind to fulfill the biblical obligation of wiping out Amalek. In the event that a minyan is not available, it's brought down that one should nevertheless read Parshat Zachar from the Chumash or even from a Sefer Torah without saying the blessings beforehand or afterwards. If one missed Parshat Zachar, then some Poskim rule that he can make this up by hearing the reading of Amalek by the Purim reading, as then we read from Beshalach. Others rule, however, that one must hear specifically the reading of Kisei, which is read in Parshat Zachar. But nevertheless, one who did miss the reading should have in mind by the Purim reading to fulfill his obligation of this mitzvah of remembering Amalek. As well, when the parsha of Kisei comes up, he should also have this in mind to fulfill all the opinions. Why do we read Parshat Zachar before Purim? So the sages established to read it specifically before Purim in order to approximate the remembrance of Amalek to the celebration of the Purim holiday, which celebrates the destruction of Haman, which was from the seed of Amalek. The portion that is read is the portion from Parshat Kisei, starting from the word Zachar es asher asa l'cha Amalek until the end of the portion. There's a machlekes amongst Poskim whether one should say Zachar or Zechar, and practically the custom is to say both, and the Chabad custom, as recorded in the Sefer B'nai Yerushalayim and the Kseifa Shulchan, and as established by the Rebbe, is that we, by Parshat Zachar, meaning from Kisei, when we read from Kisei, which is Parshat Zachar, we first say the word Zachar and then say the word Zechar. We don't repeat the whole verse, we just say Zachar and then Zechar. One is not required to hear that blessings being said by the person who got the Aliyah in order to be Yosef Parshat Zachar, although there are places that are stringent in this. The listeners are not to read along verbally together with the reader, and rather they should simply listen to the words being said by the reader. It's proper that a person go to a Torah reading that reads according to his dialect, whether he's Sephardi or Ashkenazi. So Sephardi should go into a Sephardi reading, and Ashkenazi to an Ashkenazi reading, and likewise one should try to hear it from a Sefer Torah that is written in accordance to his custom. It's disputed amongst Paiskim whether one may make a minyan specifically and only for the hearing of Zachar without reading the Torah portion of the week, meaning to just have one aliyah and read Zachar, and practically one should not do so. Although there are Paiskim that are lenient in the time of need. One may not travel with the Sefer Torah for the purpose of hearing Pasha Zachar unless the person who is being brought to Sefer Torah is sick or incarcerated in a prison and therefore cannot be present at a minyan, in which case it's mutter to travel with the Sefer Torah to that person so he fulfills the mitzvah. Anyone who's not in such a condition is forbidden to travel to move a Sefer Torah to that person unless the Sefer Torah is prepared in an ark sometime prior to the day to Shabbos and it's left it for 1 to 2 days and one reads at least 3 times from the Sefer Torah there. Are women obligated to hear Pasha Zachar? So this matter is a dispute amongst the Paiskim. Many Paiskim hold that women are not obligated to hear Pasha Zachar. One of the famous Chabad Paiskim, the Teres Chesed, states, "We have never heard of women going to Shul with Pasha Zachar." Nevertheless, there are others that rule that women are obligated, and practically today the custom amongst many women is to treat the reading of Pasha Zachar as an obligation. Some communities have a custom to make a separate minyan for women to hear Pasha Zachar. However, there are Paiskim that argue on this and say that it should not be done. All male children that have reached the age of chinuch should attend the reading of Pasha Zachar, as is always the law regarding chinuch that a child that reaches the age of understanding is obligated by his parents, by his father specifically, to be educated in the mitzvahs. One is not required to stand for Parsha Zachar, and those that choose to do so are doing so out of their own initiative. Many have the custom of making noise and banging when the Parsha of Zachar concludes. However, many Gdei Yisrael have protested against doing so, as it causes an interval between the reading and the final blessing, and thus should not be done.